Hello and welcome to this session, Digital Resiliency in a Changing World. My name is Sean Miller and I'm joining you from my room in London, England. Considering what all of us have experienced in the last year, we thought it would be a great opportunity to think about how we can build digital resiliency for our own organizations and more importantly for our customers so that they can carry on as close to business as usual in a shifting landscape. Our world's interconnected supply chain has never been more critical than in 2021, from the PPE reaching our hospitals to the food stocking our supermarket shelves, much of which would have passed through one of APM Terminals' port facilities. So who better to talk to about the potential of digital technologies to help keep our economies moving than Alex Race from APM Terminals? Alex is joining us from his shed somewhere in the UK. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
Hi, Sean, thanks.
So Alex, can you tell us a little bit about APM Terminals and your background?
Yeah, sure. Well, APM Terminals is the world's largest container operating company with a presence in 38 different countries. And we're part of the AP Moller Maersk group, which is, you may have seen some of Maersk's containers on the back of lorries on the M25, M4, or any other kind of highway, around the world. Shipping containers are like kind of metal boxes, essentially. You see them on the back of lorries. You might see them on the news on the back of these huge vessels. And they ship goods around the world, essentially. They're used to ship shoes, bananas, and they're no different to like an Amazon parcel, other than they're like 20 foot bigger and 1,000 times heavier. But another key difference between a shipping container and an Amazon parcel is that with an Amazon parcel, you can track it from point A to point B. And that is something that's a little bit more difficult with a shipping container because of the fragmented nature of the journey that box goes on as it wings its way across the world or floats its way across the world, so to speak. As for me, I'm in my shed in glorious Reading, in England. My background originally was in user experience and design, so I'm a bit of a creative at heart. But about 5 years ago, I moved into product and portfolio management, and my current role is the head of commercial digital products at APM Terminals within the IT organization. So I'm responsible for delivering commercial digital products, within the IT organization for the 70 odd terminals underneath the APM Terminals umbrella. My current role is as the head of, ultimately, I am responsible for delivering products for what we call our landside customers, right? And those are our truckers, our dispatchers, our freight forwarders, the people who interact with our terminals every day all around the world. And it's challenging, but it's also rewarding because this is an industry that is, totally ripe for disruption, and we're proud to be playing a part in that.
And over the last 5 years at Codehouse, I should say that's where I work, we've been fortunate to be APM Terminals' web experience partner. And in my role as experience lead, I've been working with you along this journey since 2017. So I remember those early meetings, and I remember being very excited about the vision and potential you and your colleague David Francis were setting out. Can you set the scene for us a little bit? It's 2017, and what did apmterminals.com look like, as well as the other collection of tools that were provided to your customers?
Yeah, that seems a long time ago now, since we had those discussions, and many miles have been traveled. Well, in 2017, Maersk was recovering from a cataclysmic cyber attack, and it almost brought the group to its knees, operationally speaking. And I think there were three really important lessons that we learned about our digital portfolio, from that event. The first was that our infrastructure was old. It lacked the back-end capabilities we needed from a modern day experience platform, and it was creaking a bit, to be honest. The second was that the digital estate was, it was fractured. It was a fractured user experience for our customers around the world, and it made it really difficult to track our application landscape, which makes it hard to then, evolve and innovate at pace and keep that consistency of service. I think, thirdly, apmterminals.com, our largest channel by volume, was largely a brochureware site, right? And there were very few opportunities for the customer to self-serve. Before joining apmterminals.com, I was involved in a couple of different sectors: utilities, telecoms. And those guys were really progressive in getting customers online to self-serve. And so I was quite surprised in joining, APMT in particular, to find that more hadn't been done, in that area.
So if our audience was sitting in the boardroom with you, as we did in those days, sitting in the same room, what would they have heard about the vision?
Our vision was to create this single digital customer experience that would support a range of self-service transactions, right? And at the same time, we envisioned, it to consolidate that fragmented application landscape into one place, right? To then make it easier to evolve and easier for us to update, etc. We wanted users to have one place to come to where they could self-serve, and a place where we could offer a single outstanding user experience, but at the same time be able to track, analyze, and respond according to the emerging customer needs at the time. And the most important thing was the ability to do that quickly.
So I'd say it's probably one thing to have a vision, and it's a whole other ball game to implement it, especially in a large organization, as many of our audience members would probably feel the same way. So how was the roadmap pitched internally and sold to your other internal stakeholders?
So we had a broad range of internal stakeholders that we needed to influence, from our commercial IT leaders to the 70 odd terminals under our umbrella. Creating an approach that would speak to, such a diverse set of stakeholders was always going to be a challenge. And I'm sure, many of the people listening today would resonate with that. As I said, for many years, I'd led user experience and design teams, and I'd become a firm believer in the simplest way to sell a vision is through storytelling, and demonstrating the art of the possible. So Codehouse worked with the team from APM Terminals, and created, concepts and prototypes that we could showcase at a range of industry forums. From steering boards to terminal show and tells, and to that extent, Codehouse took it one step further and created a range of demonstration videos that we were able to utilize on channels such as Teams, on Yammer, on our SharePoint sites. And so that allowed us to spread the message even further, and that was great.
And I can see, I think from the outside, progress always looks like this sort of upwards line, but the reality is often messy. What were some of the challenges that you faced?
So yeah, we encountered a range of challenges that, from internal decision making and conflicting organizational demands. I think the biggest challenge, though, was educating the business that a move to a single digital platform was in the best interest of both our customers, and our business stakeholders. As I said at the time, the estate was very fractured, right? So that meant that, the consolidation effort was going to pose a significant challenge and a threat, in some regards, to different groups, different individuals, different regions, across the world, and we had to work with that. I think I'd like to think that kind of the work that we've done together, the work that we've done with Codehouse, has played a role in, getting over that, in helping communicate and deliver that vision. And we're now in a very different place, and that's a great thing to see. With APM terminals, it's at the heart of everything, and I think that's been a direct result of, demonstrating the art of the possible at every stage. And it's certainly helped us build trust with stakeholders and with our terminals, to the extent that they will now come to us, they'll now approach us, and tell us their problems and the challenges they've got, asking us if we've got digital solutions that can help solve their problems.
And as part of building those digital solutions, the platform itself isn't the only answer. But what are some of the enablers that sitecore has been able to provide in kind of as part of the success of building out that platform?
Yeah, well, sitecore was already in place when I arrived at APMT in 2017, and I'd had some exposure to it in a previous role, but not quite as much. I think one of the mistakes people make when they're considering a new experience platform is that they're looking to select one based on the world they're building for, not the world that they're moving to. And I was conscious that the world that we were looking to move, or the digital world we were looking to move APMT to, was very different to the world we're living in at that moment in time. And therefore we needed to consider that in our long-term vision, for the platform of our choice, which we did. For us, we found that sitecore suited our unique need to effectively provide 70 different websites under one umbrella, because each terminal is its own business to a certain extent. And whilst it's one website, when you go, and I encourage the people looking today, look at the APM Terminals website, and you'll see what I mean. There are, each terminal has its own area of the website, and they're effectively different websites. So sitecore was able to kind of provide that, and it was pretty effortless, right? And then additionally, we were able to make use of what we called white label functionality. Some of our terminals operate as joint ventures or semi-independently under a different branding, and we were able to use that white label functionality on sitecore to do that, and that was great to see.
So I guess developing technical products well is essential, but if that product misses the mark, then it can, all the effort can be, I guess, considered pointless to a certain degree. So coming from your design background, I know you've been working hard to mature sort of the user-centered design practice at APM Terminals. What's been your process to gather user and customer feedback along the way to refine the product offering?
Yeah, well, we've got kind of, I think it splits into two, right? Formal and informal methods of kind of, capturing that feedback from our customers. And we're really lucky that our customers are not backwards in coming forwards. It doesn't always feel like a blessing, but believe me, it's a blessing. When a trucker in Los Angeles is stuck in their cab for 2 hours, trying to get into one of our terminals, and the temperature's hitting in the 80s or 90s outside, they've got a right to make themselves heard, and we've got a duty to listen to them, and we have to act accordingly. And that's what feedback provides us with, that opportunity to listen, that opportunity to act, that opportunity to help Bud, who's sweating his butt out in some, truck cab in LA. So that's good. We've integrated customer feedback tools on apmterminals.com. So that our customers can let us know their thoughts and, make suggestions. And then we're always looking for different technologies and things that will fit into our technology matrix that will help us capture the voice of the customer at the key moments of the user journey. And I think on the product development side, then obviously we're testing concepts, testing prototypes with customers before obviously we build anything, and we're holding regular touch points throughout the process to inform the next stage of product development. And I wouldn't pass this off as the most agile, but that's again the next world we're moving to, where we're able to get that a little bit quicker, a little bit more agile, and we look forward to that next step in the process.
Yeah, so just getting into the weeds a little bit on that, how have you experimented and developed these new products? How has running those design sprints helped you deliver on the roadmap?
I mean, for me, the design sprints have helped us to arrive at, a point of having a defined product faster, and with a greater degree of confidence. Um, by making that design process a collaborative effort, we have created that sense of joint ownership, across all the teams, right? That could be business, so commercial, it could be IT, it could be the finance guys, the regulatory guys. It's having that voice and giving them all that sense of ownership at the right point in the process, and that's been absolutely pivotal, and the design sprints have allowed us to do that. I think at the start of the website rebuild, we were, really reaching out to Codehouse to, bring us together, to lead the effort into, taking part in those design sprints. And you yourself, Sean, was, leading the likes of me and David Francis and others in helping, rationalize our thinking and get some structure in that. So that was really great to have. And I think it's now got to the point where, whilst we like to think ourselves of experts, at least we have some knowledge. A little knowledge is dangerous, Sean. We have some knowledge to run our own design sprints or internal design sprints. And I know that Codehouse have taken part in some of those where we've attempted to do it ourselves as well. So, that's been really good. And I think, just to mention on top of that, obviously we've had the design system as well. That's, really helped us with that quick delivery or help speed up the delivery. And I really see that design system being, as we grow at pace, that design system is going to be the glue that holds everything else together. And obviously, we're using the design system with sitecore to help that really rapid delivery and concepting and prototyping and getting stuff out there early and testing it. So it's really good.
I should probably say that I think you're probably being a bit humble about your design sprint process. I think they've been very successful, the ones that
we could argue till the cows come home, but I don't think
we certainly can. But I think, having heard all of that, I think that brings us neatly up to about like March 2020, and the product roadmap has been in full execution mode, and then a global pandemic hits. And from the outside, I guess I could say that it was pretty amazing to see how the terminals were able to stay resilient, be able to operate through what was obviously an unprecedented disruption. And I think this is like a really valuable point that I wanted to sort of extract out of you, which is how did anticipating disruptions in a normal business as usual sort of cycle help the terminals to respond more effectively during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, working for a company that operates across such a geographically, diverse footprint, as APMT, we're always aware of like the seemingly unlimited, number of disruptions that can interrupt our terminal operations. And that was even before we got the pandemic. Monsoons, hurricanes, wildfires, the odd IT gremlin here and there. They're omnipresent. They're always there, and you're always aware that there's the threat there, right? So, when I arrived, one of the things that struck me was that we kind of lack we did lack a central control point, so to speak, where our terminals could send out alerts to their customers and say, hey, something's wrong. You may not want to come to the terminal today, or hold back, we're just dealing with something. And that's why we decided to use Sitecore as our central platform to send out these operational alerts to customers in the event that there was terminal disruption. So to enable this, we that was the birth of our online account capability, really, and it allowed our customers to sign up. They could sign up to a variety of operational alerts that could be delivered via email or SMS. Codehouse, I think, utilized the EXM, the experience manager kind of part of Sitecore to build out the editorial, the contact management, the email stuff, and then we integrated the whole lot with IMI Mobile Connect to match up with the SMS capability as well. And then in addition to that, we've put in terminal operational alerts on the website, so each terminal has control of their bit and they can put up operational alerts on the website. And then we almost have like a global red button, which is this like a global crisis takeover page, which was a direct result of the cyber attack when we had an event of such a magnitude. We really needed this. Hey, the world, something's wrong, and you need to know about it. Yeah. And so, fortunately, we have not had to use that component yet, but it sits in our back pocket, and I hope that either you or me never get to see that.
Yeah, I think it's good to have some of those modules never see the light of day, but it's good to know that they're there. And I think that's probably a good lesson for lots of organizations in that. And I think it's amazing actually to kind of be able to take those previous failures, in a sense, be able to help set APM terminals up for the future success and for the resiliency that we're seeing today. And I imagine having those features primed and ready have had a huge impact on the terminals themselves as well as their customers.
Yeah, I mean, we've had over 10,000 people sign up for these operational alerts, and the numbers rising every week. And for every person that receives that notification, it's one less customer being inconvenienced. It's one less truck on the road. It's less fossil fuel being burned. It's less congestion at the terminal. It's less, it's one less thing for our customer service teams to have to deal with, right? So it's got operational, economic, ecological benefits across, not only our landside customers, but the entire kind of landside supply chain. And we're certainly pleased we did it.
Totally. And to kind of take that another sort of step further in terms of what you've been doing over the last few years, there's that phrase from the investor Mark Andreessen about sort of software eating the world, and that the organizations that will succeed will be sort of tech companies, although they may not look like tech companies from the outside. And I guess one could easily say that APM Terminals appears to be as physical a company as there is, from the cranes to the containers. But actually on the inside, it's the data that fuels the operations at every terminal. So what was the driver behind beginning to provide direct access to some of APM Terminals' operating data?
Well, yeah, so, I mean, there are a number of companies that have managed to embrace the commercial API model, and we've taken particular inspiration from the likes of like TomTom, right? Another Dutch company. We're a Dutch company based in The Hague, and and TomTom are Dutch as well. For me personally, it's bittersweet, right? I'm a design guy. I love everything having a front end. I like it to be glossy. I like a bit of razzmatazz about the digital business. Design and that stuff is in my DNA, right? But at the same time, the market, the customers, they're telling us they want our data. They're not bothered about my front end. I can be insulted by that, but they're not bothered about that. They're telling us they want our data, and it's our customers that I'm here to serve, that my team are here to serve, that, you know, David and his guys in the business are here to serve, and we've got to listen and we've got to deliver. And so it's a new world to me, you know, but I'm pleased with the progress we've made so far.
Were there any sort of initial insights? Perhaps it's been conversations. Was there any particular analysis that you did that kind of gave you the first insight that probably this is the direction that the organization should be going in?
Yeah, so I think when I first arrived at APMT, there was, you know, I am a little bit of a data geek because I do like Google Analytics and obviously sitecore analytics now in 9 offers, like, you know, some great, you know, user experience in the analytics space. I'm a bit of a fan of all that stuff as well. So, you know, but, you know, at the time I arrived and I looked at the analytics and I noticed that out of like the 700 pages on the site, there was 2 pages were like receiving 80% of the traffic. I was like, what is this, you know? And it was the 2 pages that allowed customers to come in and see data about their container status. So is the container at the terminal? Is it still on the ship? Has it been discharged? Is it ready to collect? All that stuff, right? So those 2 pages were driving 80% of our traffic. We're talking like 20 odd million like views a year, right? And some of our customers were coming in and they were accessing that like dozens and dozens of times daily, like up to 50 times daily. And I was like, you know, this is crazy behavior. And so, you know, that gave me the first inkling that our data, people wanted our data, you know, and there was almost as if the website was kind of getting in the way of just getting that information, you know. So, and then, you know, maybe a year down the line, you know, David Francis and the guys in commercial, you know, started hearing drum beats from the market about people saying, you know, can you give us data en masse? You know, this may have some, you know, like, you know, value in terms of a commercial proposition, and should we force customers to go in and try and get it through the website? So that is really where the need came from, and they were the 2 kind of points, I think, you know, those realizations where we're like, okay, you know, now is the time for a product that will serve this data more directly. So we don't have to force the customers to go in and get the data from the website. Unfortunately, it did mean a hit of volume on the website, but sometimes you have to concede a bit of ground for the greater good of the customer.
Yes, I mean, absolutely, and I guess that's about it's about knowing where that traffic is going as well. The sort of raw absolute numbers don't necessarily mean anything without the context of kind of why certain things are happening. So no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's, I guess it's projects like that have, I guess, contributed to last year APM Terminals winning the Sitecore award for most impactful connections in a changing world. What did that mean to the team?
So the award meant, like, it meant a lot to them, right? You know, to them it was recognition of, you know, the blood, sweat, and tears that they had kind of poured into, you know, the transformation that we're ongoing. And I know they're really grateful for the recognition. You know, it was recognition of like the individuals involved. It was individual of the APMT team. It was recognition of the Codehouse team, you know, but it was recognition of the combined, you know, that combined, you know, effort that we all put in and we all worked really hard to achieve. And I think it gave us, you know, a warm, happy feeling, let's say.
Lovely. So I guess if we could rewind the clock 3 years back to 2017, and before all of those tears had been shed, all of that sweat had dripped from your brows, what's something that you would say to Alex of 2017?
Well, the first one would be that not to stress. I'm not sure the Alex of 3 years ago would have taken the advice, but I'd have given him the advice of not to stress. It will turn out all right. I think one of my abiding memories was, you know, of me lying awake one night in my hotel room in The Hague, and thinking over and over and over about like an issue we were having in getting some infrastructure stood up. And I couldn't sleep, so I got dressed and I started to map out all the emails I'd sent around this issue, and who I'd sent them to and who they'd referred me to, and and what decisions had been making or not making as it was. And after 30 minutes, I like look at this page in front of me, and it is just this massive jumble of circles and arrows pointing to circles and the arrow going back again, and it just looked like a bowl of spaghetti basically. And I'd been working on that for 8 weeks, trying to resolve it. I'd escalated, I'd pulled people aside, I tried to do favors, I begged, and it felt pretty hopeless at that moment in time. And at that moment I felt pretty deflated and pretty defeated. But then I think that leads on to my second piece of advice for the Alex of 3 years ago, which is, resilience pays off. In that situation, I worked at it. I probably made myself very unpopular in the process. I think undoubtedly I did. But it got resolved, the project powered on, and we're here talking about data resiliency today, but I think we've got to remember that behind every resilient product there is a resilient team. Behind every resilient team there is a resilient individual. So what we're here talking about today is really about resilient people who power resilient digital experiences. And I think we should all, as joint people that work in the digital industry, we should all be very proud of that, because we do well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think no more than this last year have I kind of seen that happen, certainly in your team, but across other organizations, and the way that different teams have responded and helped their organizations be ready and kind of thrive still in this most challenging of times. So if we look forward to the next 3 years, what does that look like, do you think?
So we've set ourselves ambitious targets for the next 3 years. We're looking at building out new truck appointment systems, e-commerce solutions, digital projects that connect with automated infrastructure. But I think as the last 3 years have taught me that no matter what your plans are, there is something unplanned waiting just around the corner. So I think very much like the last 3 years, I think we'll expect some big successes. I think we'll expect some even bigger challenges, and I think we'll expect a whole lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, I hope to be a part of that journey for the next 3 years. And Alex, thanks so much for joining us for this session, and your candid description of what it's taken you and the team to build both your own personal resilience, and you've used that resilience to build a digital platform that helps terminals around the world, and it's crucially its customers to have that operational resiliency. Before we kind of finish, I just wanted to pick out just a few lessons that I've taken away from what you said today, but also from working with you over the last few years. And firstly, that's how to implement a long-term vision in a large organization. And I've kind of seen how successfully you've done that with the team, and that's included the use of storytelling, as you said, it's videos, it's storyboarding, and using rapid prototyping, using kind of the design sprint methodology, amongst others, as a way to demonstrate an idea more tangibly, and obviously alongside that continuous customer validation to help moving internal stakeholders with you, because they can see the proof of and the validation of the idea roadmap, and so it makes it easier to make those kinds of investments and to take them with you. Secondly, I would say it's about thinking about how the customer experience isn't only about the shiny front end, which we both love, or even the digital platforms that we use to build them, but it's about making valuable data accessible as a key component of the overall customer experience. And really, I think that is, as you've shown, as your company has shown, that is really the kind of mark of a future thinking tech company and probably most importantly, is how to be methodical about learning from failures and turning those into strengths, enable to be able to be prepared for perhaps what could be the worst scenario, and when that worst scenario could happen, actually you're really ready for it. So I'd like to thank all of you here, and I hope that there are some lessons to take away from this session. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sean. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.